Here's to the dreamers, the builders, the fighters, the leaders, the people in the trenches. If y'all are tired, I promise I am too. Fewer words have been more true. Welcome to the Build Something Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Build Something Media Podcast. I am your host, Justin Bethune, and with me today, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I don't want to mess up your title.
That's right.
I never know how you guys are about that. So go ahead.
Yeah, Josh Porter, and I am the owner of Optimize You here in Chattanooga.
Now, do you go by Dr. Josh, Dr. Porter?
No, I'm a physician assistant by trade, and so I like Josh. I think it's more personal, so
me too.
You can call me a lot worse things. Just call me by my first name.
All right. I didn't want to screw up the title.
Yeah, so. No, it's perfect, man.
Cool. All right. So tell us a little bit about Optimize You.
Yeah. So we are a preventative medical clinic that focuses primarily on hormone optimization.
Yes.
And so we treat men and women. And that can look, the aging patient is really kind of my ideal candidate. So I talk about demographically, probably that, the ideal person would probably be somewhere in their mid 30s to that 65-year-old. That's kind of our sweet spot. We've got outliers for sure. But our focus is, how do we help people become the best version of themselves? How do we help people take ownership of their health, really look at it from instead of the reactive traditional setting that most of medicine is in the United States to more of a, why don't we look at this before you actually have problems, right?
Right.
And we started it in 2022, January 22. So we'll be open 3 years coming in a few months, and
nice.
It's been pretty fun ride so far.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah. So we're at 2 locations now. So we've got one, that we've had kind of the OG, and then we opened up another one in the Hickson area of Chattanooga about a year ago, actually. Okay. And so we keep growing.
So what are the future plans for growth wise? What are y'all looking at? Well,
I mean, I think you've got to, I'm definitely somebody who's pretty motivated, just from a business sense. And so I think this is an area of medicine right now. And I don't think it's trendy. I think it's an opportunity, because I think there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the ways of the old system. And there's nothing, and I'm not here to, I worked in, corporate healthcare for 12 years. So I understand there is a place for that type of medicine. It's not to say that it's all or none. But I think because of that, the volume, the demand, Justin, is like, I mean, it's unending for us. Right. Yeah. And so what we have to do though, is we have to have the mindset of growth and yet not lose the quality of care that we offer. And that's probably our biggest challenge right now is, I've been pretty slow. We've got 2 clinics. They're really kind of busting at the seams, but really trying to find the ability to have more and more providers who practice what we do, how we do things, the philosophical, the evidence-based aspect of it, and really that mindset and belief in what we do, is not, I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing to find. And so we have to be really strategic in bringing people in, because it's got to fit our culture. Right. So our growth mindset is we're opening up. We already have a clinic in it's a satellite clinic in Cleveland. I'd really like to see that grow to a full-blown clinic. And then who knows, man? I've got some ideas of maybe Knoxville, Atlanta. We'll kind of see where the future takes me.
Yeah, why not? I mean, y'all are doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And I've been, how long have I been a patient?
Gosh, you've been there for a couple of years, bro.
Yeah, y'all haven't been open that long.
You were one of the first. You were probably, early patients for sure.
So I mean, y'all have done tremendous things for me as well. And like you said, you're a really down to earth guy when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
And so as somebody who has had low testosterone issues as a guy since my late 20s, basically, I've gone through like the ringer. Like I started when I was in my late 20s and then came off of everything for like a few years and it just felt like crap, and it's like, I feel like as a man, having low testosterone is a lot more dangerous day to day than having too much testosterone.
That's right. Yeah.
I just, man, like, and it's not just physical, like it can be emotional, mental, like you can have so many, like our brains as men are like, they're so fragile.
Yes.
If your hormones are out of balance, like it can mess you up.
Well, and it's getting, I mean, you know, unfortunately, I would love to say, you know, a guy in his 20s with low testosterone is an outlier, but it's unfortunately not, right? It's happening
nowadays.
More and
it's
more.
not.
Yeah. And so you're seeing so many environmental factors that are playing against us, that are putting men in that, you know, even from a fertility issue. I mean, there's so many factors there, but yeah, you're so right, man. I mean, it's, you know, everybody wants to assume testosterone and it's just the sexual function of what testosterone does. And that's just such a small piece of the pie. It really is the mindset, the emotional piece, the physical, you know, I talk about physical ROI where people are putting in the effort. You know, I see so many patients along the day. I mean, this can be male or female where it's like, man, nutritionally, I'm doing everything I know to do. Exercise, I'm doing everything I know to do. Sleep, I'm doing everything I know to do. And it is like they're swimming upstream, right? Yeah. And it's because their hormones are crap, to be honest with you. So, we take pride in that, man. I mean, I probably get 40 text messages a day from patients, right? And I never really want to lose that connection with my patients. And it's gotten harder. But one of the things I've had to do is just, I don't take a ton of new patients anymore. I kind of push that off to other providers who are skilled, and because I don't want to, you know, see somebody and then not have that relationship. That relationship is why I got into medicine, you know? Yeah. And so even though I've got businesses and I've got a mindset, you know, as an entrepreneur, I feel like personally I have a calling, and that calling is to impact other people's lives from a medical standpoint. And that's why, you know, I don't know that I'll ever stop being a provider, because it's who I am.
And this is like a relationship type business, the way that you're practicing is, because this is an ongoing thing. It's not like I'm coming in for you to treat an illness or a disease or symptoms or something like that. Right. Like, this is an ongoing thing. And this is something to where, like, once you start, you're kind of on that train moving forward. Right. And it's something that, like, it's not like here, take this pill every day and this is going to fix your problems. Like, it's like, take this, let's do your blood work. Let's see how you feel. Let's see how you're reacting. Let's adjust from there. Let's start here. You know, it's like, there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah. It's not a set it and forget it type thing.
Not. And there's, and again, I think it's what is in the best interest of the patient is to be as broad thinking as I can. Right. So on any given, you know, interaction with my patients, I'm looking at their hormone levels and, you know, we're dialing those in, but I'm thinking, you know, how is your sleep, right? How are you eating? You know, how's your stress management? I mean, those are questions that we've got to dig into, because those affect how that person feels. And so that's just something I'm really focused on is, again, it goes back to how do I help? How do I come alongside somebody and allow them to utilize our services to become the best version of themselves? And that's going to change. That's, you know, jobs change, you know, relationships change. I mean, you know, I go from, you know, talking to somebody, you know, 3 months ago, 3 months down the road, life is different, you know? And so I've got to be able to navigate those things. And, you know, I love that. I love the ability to just, you know, say, hey man, like, what are your goals for this year? Right. Because last year it may have been, I want to lose 25 pounds. This year it may be like, hey, I want to run a marathon. You know what I mean? How do I help you get there? And that's that precision medicine. It's another kind of term that we use, which is just really dialing in to that patient. And I always talk about what's called shared decision making, and that's a very different model as well. Because typically you go to the doctor and the doctor just says, here's what you're getting, right? There's no discussion for the most part. Take this is what the lab shows, and, you know, we'll see in, you know, 6 months. I don't ever do that, right? I always tell people, I don't really care if you do what I ask you to do or do what I would encourage you to do, as you can 100% disagree with me, as long as you make that decision out of being informed, right? If you make a decision out of being scared, out of fear, out of what my grandmother said, or, you know, my coworker told me about this, I'm going to kind of push against that a little bit, because that just means you have not come to the mindset that you're taking care or taking ownership of your own health. And that's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, y'all do a great job of that.
Thanks, man.
So it's there's nothing that's ever been pushy, and it's not like, it's like, hey, how do you feel about this? How do you think that we should do this? And, and because like when it comes to hormones and stuff, like everybody's different. Like you and I can have the same levels and not feel the same.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people think, that it's easy. I wish it were some days. But yeah, you're so right. I can give you a dose and I can give myself a dose, and those levels are going to be very different. And our response is different, right? That dose may be too much for me. It may not be enough for you. And so that's the other thing, is that you don't chase a number, you chase a symptom. Yeah. Right. So how does Justin Bethune feel based off of what that level shows? One of the things that I've always done and continue to do this is when I first see a patient, and one of the first questions anybody ever asked me, Justin, is, hey, what was my level? That's like the icebreaker question that everybody wants to know when they sit down. And then my response is, I have no idea. I haven't even looked at it yet. Yeah. Because I want this interaction, I want this conversation to guide me in a place where when I look at those levels in 30 minutes after we stop talking, then that level only confirms what you just spent 30 minutes telling me about. Yeah. Which is powerful, right? Because now all of a sudden it's like, it helps for that patient to understand, like, oh my gosh, like you're not, I'm not crazy, right? Yeah. And so anyway, I'm a big believer of you treat the symptom, not the level. Yeah.
And I said those levels don't always really mean anything. Like some guys can operate at 300 and never know anything's wrong, and some guys at 300 feel like they're dying.
That's right.
Like when I first started, I was at 300, but I was a competitive power lifter. Right. And I was strong as an ox. Right. And
you wouldn't have just thought it, right?
I wouldn't have. I felt like
physically
crap.
Anyway. Yeah.
Like as far as like physical like strength and athleticism and stuff, I was strong as an ox. And when I went and got all my levels checked, the doctor was like, dude, I was down in Savannah at that time. And he was like, I can only imagine how strong you're going to be when we get this fixed.
Right.
The issue that I had at the time was I was competing drug tested. I was in
you're limited.
I was in a drug tested federation, so I had to make that decision. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, even though it's prescription and it's
your ratios and all
the best for me and my overall health, I can't stay in this federation. That's right. So I had to move to an untested federation. And dude, it
took off.
I took off like a rocket. Yeah. And it's, I never really got into like the hardcore like stuff like a lot of guys do. It was just that little bit. Yeah. It was really all you took.
Well, I think the issue is we have no idea, because we don't do a great job of this as a society, in medicine in particular, of knowing where you were at your optimal level, right? Exactly. You felt bad, which is why you got your testosterone. And so now the only reference range I've got to compare myself to is the average person. Yep. Well, let's talk about that for a second. 74% of Americans are overweight. I'm not really interested in being compared to them. Just being honest.
I want to be in the top 1%.
That's right. So if you are going to put me in that range, put me at the top, right? Yeah. And so I think that's where we have to kind of get into, the understanding of it's hard to really individualize hormone therapy for the person who's never had their levels checked until they felt bad. Yeah. Because I don't know what was optimal.
Right? Well, and then the normal range is what, 300 to 1200, somewhere in there?
I wish. It's it used to be 300 to 1300. Now it's 264 to 916. So
like 264, like that's not optimal.
Yeah.
That's
well, that's right. Well, that goes to back, there's a study that came out that showed that testosterone levels were on the decline, from decade to decade. And so the levels used to be higher, but the CDC says, well,
but you go to your general practitioner as a 45-year-old man and you're like, I feel kind of sluggish, blah, 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 and they do all your blood work. They check your testosterone, you're at 290. Yeah. And you got a buddy that's at 1100.
That's right.
You're both normal.
Yeah. Well, if you can even especially if you're in your 30s or your early 40s, they probably don't even check your testosterone level unless you specifically say, can you check that? But most of them will be back, especially a guy like you, right, who was a power lifter. I mean, kudos to the person who checked it when you didn't feel good as a power lifter, because it's easy. I hear this all the time. They're like, they won't even check my levels because they look at me and think, well, you don't have low testosterone. But yeah, I mean, I think that is, the whole reference range is whatever. I mean, it's a guidepost.
And then you can dive deeper into ratios and free testosterone and T4.
Yeah.
People don't.
Yeah. I mean, the free testosterone, I just did a video on this for our social media account. Free testosterone was really the only range that I care about.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll look at your total just because everybody wants to know it. But when I'm managing a patient, male or female, like I'm going to manage your free more than I'm going to manage your total.
And that's what you've done with me.
Yeah.
Because like when I first started coming to you, my total testosterone was high.
Right.
My free testosterone was low, and I felt like crap because I was doing it myself.
That's right.
And now we've gotten to the point where we've gotten my total testosterone down into the normal range. Yeah. But my free testosterone it was like through the roof last time.
Yeah.
And you're like, I bet you feel good. I'm like, yeah, I feel great.
It's huge because, more is not always better when it comes to side effects.
Especially when it comes to side effects.
And so, if you can dial somebody in to where their levels are, where they're getting the most beneficial use out of this hormone, then
bang for the buck, man.
Yeah, dude. Like that's what you want to try to get. So I do spend, it's the industry that I live in, right? As far as, hey, do you think you can, crank that up a little bit? Well, okay, well, let's just talk about that. Do you want, cystic acne on the back of your neck? Do you want a ton of back hair? Do you want, you know what I mean?
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure. I mean, there are some side effects. Now,
there's a lot of side effects. As someone who has experimented with it, I'm very open about stuff that I've done. Yeah. And so when I was competing and getting paid for it and stuff, and so I did experiment for about a year, and the side effects are ridiculously bad. Yeah. Like I got to the point to where all I wanted to do was train, eat, and sleep. I was so lethargic, and it's because my levels were so out of whack. Yeah. And like my total testosterone was, they couldn't even measure it.
You're right. 2,500.
And you just, at least. Yeah. And you feel like garbage. And your blood pressure's through the roof. And your cholesterol's all screwed up. And it's not worth it.
It's not benign in those regards. So you got to find, and that's, I think it's unfortunate that testosterone went that way and I guess in some ways it still is, that when it was placed on the controlled substance list in the 90s, that's really when you see testosterone kind of go the black market route, right? Because it was just hard to get. And then a lot of providers are not going to prescribe it. What's interesting is it's the only what we call a natural ligand, so something our body produces that's a controlled substance. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's wild.
So your body produces testosterone, yet it's a controlled substance. Yeah. So kind of crazy.
It's like you look at things like insulin. Right. It's like it's viewed completely different.
Yeah. It's a hormone. Yeah. But it's not a controlled substance, but testosterone is.
And we could do and I think you should do an entire series about kind of how the public perceives the use of this, because from my experience and what I see, men are vilified for using testosterone. 1,000%. And women are praised for getting their hormones. Yeah. Especially if they're taking
recently,
a little bit.
For sure. In a positive way. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I think, I don't know, like Oprah, The View or whatever it was like just praising women. Yeah. I started taking testosterone. I feel amazing. I feel 20 years younger, blah, blah, blah. But a guy does the same thing and he's a juice head. He's cheating. He's too masculine. It's toxic. Right. Right. All this stuff. That's something that needs to be fixed.
Because one of the things about females with hormones is that I think where we're at now in the really probably past 4 or 5 years is actually more favorable towards women with hormone therapy. It hasn't always been that way. In complete transparency, I think they've actually been dealt a pretty crappy situation with some of the literature and deception there. In the early 2000s, for example, there was a study that came out and it showed a potential increased risk in development of breast cancer. Overnight, 80% decline in prescriptions of hormones written for women, right? So they've had their own journey. But you're so right in that I think it's anytime you step out of mainstream. Yeah. When which is why hormone clinics exist. And so I think when you step out of mainstream, you kind of tick off the medical, society, and they don't like it, and they don't like the fact, there's studies showing this, Justin, this is kind of crazy. Perception of anabolic users versus perception of opioid users from a physician standpoint, and who has the more negative perception. Physicians perceive anabolic users worse than they perceive
it's wild,
users, which is crazy.
It's crazy.
Because the anabolic user is one of the more educated people. Now, they may not be completely right, but they care about their body, right? They focus on what they put in. They're putting in the effort.
I've never put in anything in my body that I didn't research from top to bottom.
You guys know it, you know.
And I don't smoke. I don't drink.
Right.
Like, I've never done any kind of recreational drugs.
Yeah.
So steroids, quote unquote, is the only thing that I've ever put in my body. And I'm not doing that stuff willy-nilly.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you're right. And most of those guys and women are like myself. They're not just trying it out of the blue.
Very few people. Yeah.
You know? And so it's just like the perception of it. And it's funny how many, cause I've gone to every kind of gym.
Right.
I've done bodybuilding. I've done powerlifting.
Yeah.
I've worked out as a football player, but I've also done CrossFit and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I've
seen it all.
I've seen the whole gamut. I've had conversations with guys in a CrossFit gym that within the same conversation, they were talking about their prescription from their hormone doctor and then vilifying a power lifter for using steroids.
Right.
And I'm like, it's what?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
I'm like, it's the same thing.
Right.
Like you are taking the same thing that he is taking and you're talking crap about him for.
Right.
Because the word steroid was used. I was like, you do realize that steroids is just testosterone. It's injectable testosterone.
Yeah. It has a lot of branches from there, but testosterone is the foundation. And I think that's the key is, you know, one of the things that we talk about, you know, for that anabolic users, we talk about harm reduction. So we do a lot of harm reduction consultations. And I tell people all the time, like, listen, all I'm asking is you don't lie to me, right?
Yeah.
Your labs probably won't lie to me, so I'll catch you if you do, you know. But it's just not to your benefit to lie to me. Like, you've got to be open. I need to be a place where they feel like they can be transparent, they can be safe. They know that if they're doing harm, that I'm going to kind of, you know, speak into that and tell them like, hey, like, have you considered what this is doing to your liver, right? And look at these, you know, tests. So versus just dismissing them. I think that's where that industry has, you know, we've kind of lost our way in that we just dismiss that group as if like, no, I'm not going to even, you know, deal with you.
It's a huge problem because like you said, the perception of your general practitioner, your normal doctor to look at someone who's using steroids, they don't even want to treat them.
Right.
And I have personally lost several friends, close friends, people that I know.
You went the wrong way. And
because it's taboo and nobody wants to help them. And there's no studies being done,
right? You
know, and there's no help out there professionally. Yeah. It is all just kind of like bathtub, backyard, like figuring this out as you go type of thing.
Non-sterile and stuff.
People, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. They are.
And nobody wants to help do it the right way.
Right.
Like there's so many preventable deaths of people that I personally knew.
Yeah.
That were just doing things the wrong way, and they were scared to even go to the doctor,
right?
Because the way that it's perceived, and it's like that needs to be fixed.
Well, there's some literature that shows there's 66% of patients on anabolics would be willing to stop them, right? Which is huge. I think I mean, if I were a betting person, right, and I had 66% success rate on the odds of whatever it is, so I see that as the provider. If like 66% of the time, if I've got somebody walking into my door who has the potential to stop what they're doing and do it correctly, right, in a supervised manner, why would you not try to? Like,
exactly.
Seems like a pretty successful story, right?
Yeah. And
so that's just kind of where I've been, and that's why I don't say no to those people, is because I feel like I have a place where, again, I can be that safe spot for them.
I mean, I don't know how you're going to take that, but you're saving people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, yeah. Probably.
I would say that you are 100%, because a lot of these guys are just, they have no direction. They have nobody to help them out. Yeah. They have nobody to ask. I mean, the questions they're asking are for other bodybuilders in forums on the internet.
Right.
Like that's where a lot of this stuff comes from.
I mean, seriously, because I feel pretty fortunate, you know, as we've gotten bigger and maybe a little bit more successful from the outward appearance, you know, you get these partnerships or these people, these, you know, places will come in and be like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about an exclusive partnership or something like that. And I've just always been hesitant to that because one of the things I feel very fortunate about is we have really good relationships with a lot of different, you know, gyms and trainers in town. And I think it's because we created that environment and that culture early on of like, hey, we're going to take care of you guys.
I mean, that's how I ended up coming to you. Nate and Donnell sent me to you.
Oh, really?
Because they sponsored me for years when I was competing. And so like I've been training at the Grit House on and off since pretty much they opened.
Yeah.
And
Nate's a cool dude.
Nate was like, go see Josh. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, seriously, but that's it. That's kind of, because we are a business we don't get referrals from providers or hospital systems, right? We're a direct to consumer business, right? So we have to get our referrals from people who are in the trenches of this stuff and living it day to day. So yeah, it's been that's been a fun journey. Yeah. Making those connections.
So on that note, let's kind of go down that path of how much you've grown over the last 3 years, and then kind of how you've been able to grow that way. Yeah. Like what was your original plan, and how has it kind of changed?
Man, my original plan is I didn't want to suck.
That's a good slogan.
Yeah. Don't suck.
Just don't suck.
So, I mean, just again, full transparency, I had 5 kids when I started this, right? So my wife and I have been married for 20 years. And so the idea of just starting afresh and being like, oh, this is cool. Like it is cool, but I've also got a lot of mouths to feed, right?
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So you get it. And so I started slow. I mean, I started in a corner of a chiropractic office. I think, thanks to Superior Physical Health off of East Sprinter Road, they just gave me an opportunity. I was, Randy Crawford's a neighbor of mine, and he's like, I'll never forget it, man. He just said, I remember, he's an older guy, and he's like, I remember what it was like to try to start something, So he lended his first open, arms, like, come on in, let's see what we can do. And then from there, it just kind of started to evolve. I would actually see patients, Justin, in the evenings. So I had a full-time job, paying for the family, right? I hired a nurse, and so she was there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I would literally, we would like slap hands, tag team. She's leaving out the door, and I'm coming in to see patients, because she would just kind of, so from about 6 to 8 p.m., I'd start seeing patients. And then I did it on Saturdays from 8 to 12. And, a mortgage in my house to do it all, right? I mean, it was scary. About 3 months in, we got connected to Nutrition World, and they invited us to move into where our current location, the original one, is now. And that was really, that's probably what put us on the map. Was, I've talked about Ed Jones a lot. I mean, he's been a huge mentor of mine from a business standpoint, but a 3-month-old business almost automatically, instantly was able to stand on the shoulders of a guy who had been building business for 40 years. Yeah. So credibility was, so if Ed Jones said, hey, you need to go see Josh Porter, you went and saw Josh Porter. You didn't ask who's Josh, and so the business really started to kind of evolve. And one of the things that I felt like early on was that I wanted to be a voice for people. And so that, when you talk about branding, because I don't think a lot of people do that well, and I'm not a social media guy. I mean, I don't love to, be all in the spotlight. But I knew if I had a message, right? If I could get that message out to people, that I think I could, make an impact. And so we really started to kind of brand ourselves, that we were the experts, that we had a passion to help people, and again, something not even in a marketing. It's just really kind of what's inside of me is that I'm not interested in being the hero. My patient's the hero. Yeah. And the more I can make about my patients, the more successful I'm going to be, right? If you take care of enough people, help them get what they want, you're going to get what you want, right? And so that was just kind of the motto, is like, man, let me just keep doing this. And so I just, when I wasn't busy, I'd make cold calls. I'd call a gym here in town, and, I'd set up a booth at Gold's Gym on a Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I mean, it was not sexy. Yeah. Let me just tell you. And then it just kind of continued to kind of snowball. Our second year, we had a 300% growth. I mean, wow. It was one of those things where it was like, okay, this is steadily growing to then like, you're drinking water out of a fire hydrant a little bit. And it's hard to, so we went from year one, so we opened in January. I didn't go full time until November. So I was working part-time, extra hour or evening hours, things like that for the first, 7, 8, 9 months. So went full-time November, so now you've got 2 employees in, November of 22. 2 years later, here we almost are, and we have 14 employees. Right. And so that's been kind of a challenge in and of itself of like, scaling that, because it goes back to, okay, well, I want to be able to be the best place in town, in the region to really help people. But you got to find.
You can't be face to face with everybody as you're growing.
I can't. And I've been super fortunate. We just brought on a new employee recently. And he's just kind of getting, to know kind of the culture. And he's like, man, he goes, what I've realized is the connection you had with all these people. And that, you can't replicate that forever, right?
No.
But
we haven't figured out cloning yet. So
yeah. So, but that was the case, is that I was just able to bring people in that I knew, that I trusted, who had been patients. My GM, she had been a patient of mine for a year. And Mandy texted me one day, because 90% of my patients have my phone number. And so she'd been my patient for a year. And she said, hey, congratulations. You've I've been your patient for a year. I haven't, driven you crazy. And then she said, and if you ever want to hire me, let me know. And I'm not kidding, dude. Like, I didn't really have the reason, like financially, I don't know that I could look at the books and be like, oh yeah, I'm ready for a GM, but I knew that she was the person that if I were going to have a GM, she was the one I wanted.
Right.
And so I called her and I was like, hey, I think I can make this work.
Nice.
And it did. I mean, again, she was a huge part, her and Laura Chastain is a nurse practitioner with me. They both came on at kind of similar times. And, that those two in particular early on were somebody, I mean, they both had great jobs, super secure jobs, and they're looking on and thinking, like, what are we doing? But I think that part of it was also invigorating to them, because they've been a part of it pretty early on, and they've helped me build it, Yeah,
because they took a gamble, so they're gonna.
Yeah, they did.
They're gonna put in the effort as well.
That's right. Yeah. They've truly, and we talk about just taking ownership of your own health, but those, I feel like all of my staff really do, from the top down. Like, they really do take ownership of their position every single day, man. I am so blessed, to just, like, when I think about this, from the phlebotomist to the front desk, to, the general managers, I mean, every single one of them, it's like they own the company. They handle it every day like that, man.
It's, I know I'm a little bit different, with how often I come in there and other stuff that we have going on and stuff, but they all know me by name. They all like, when I go in to get my refills and stuff, they don't even have to ask me. It doesn't matter who's at the front desk. They've already got me pulled up. They know me. They're asking about the family, the kids. Like, I mean, I've never had a bad experience.
We've got some patients in there who literally just come in to have a coffee every now and then. Because I think we created that culture, and it is a cool place to hang out. We've got the recovery services where people can chill out on the recliner and do a cold plunge. And
so you got people coming in on a weekly basis. Multiple times.
Multiple times a week, just doing those things. And I think, again, that was just one of those things where I wanted people to know, like, man, we are a family,
Right.
And my staff is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
So what's, how far can you grow from where you're at right now without, let's say, maybe without adding on another location? Like, how many more patients do you think you can take on?
Well, I think the rate limiting factor is always going to be, location, right? So what's the size of, how many offices do you have? And then your providers. So those are two that we kind of are constantly in battle with currently. In the two locations I've got in Chattanooga, we could bring on another provider. So right now, the rate limiting factor is just the provider. And in my industry, and this is something we are actively trying to work on, it's one thing if you call your orthopedic guy and you're like, hey, my knee hurts. And they're like, okay, we'll see you in 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
You kind of expect that. And in our market, that's really not ideal. And that's something we're kind of struggling with right now. Again, for all intents and purposes, from a business, okay, that's a cool problem, good problem to have. Like, you're that booked out, but it's not really the desire of what we want to do. And so that's kind of what we're constantly battling is, how many providers, locations. So yeah, I mean, I think we for sure, the two locations we've got in Chattanooga are awesome. I think we could have another full-time provider here in the short future. Cleveland is kind of its own animal where Cleveland's
its own world, man.
It is.
Like, it's a whole different state up there.
But it's, again, it's kind of fun in that it actually has been bringing me back to the beginning days. Just because I'm grinding, right? Yeah. I mean, I was on a radio show this morning up there, and it's almost nostalgic because it reminds me of like, oh my gosh, like just 2.5, 3 years ago, I was doing this to get this thing off the ground. So that there is a little bit of that where it's like it's exciting, for sure. So yeah, but it is a different animal. But I mean, like we've got a nurse up there who's from Cleveland, passionate about it. So I feel like we've got the right pieces of the pie set up. So
there you go. So Chattanooga, Hickson, and then
Cleveland.
It's going to be Cleveland.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's there.
Yeah, it's there. And then from there, you said maybe Atlanta, Knoxville. Nashville.
Yeah. So currently, kind of an interesting. I was not planning on this. This is all coming on. We're also remodeling our house right now, so it's just in a wave right now, bro. So I've got all this, money set aside and, trying to put it together for the remodel. And then out of nowhere, I get this call about 2 weeks ago in Roswell, Georgia. So right outside of Alpharetta. And it's a recovery clinic. So they do cryo chamber and they've got, the Normatec boots and those kind of things, but they don't do hormones. And it's just, the lady, the owner, she's awesome. She's just kind of ready to cut ties. And so she, threw out a number and we countered and said, we're not interested in that number, but would you do this? And she said, yes. So
story as old as time right there.
So I'm currently in 14 days of due diligence.
Oh, wow. Nice. Congratulations.
So that really wasn't in like on the, but I've got so one of my mentors lives in Alpharetta and I'm big on like, I want to know that I've got a warm market, a connection. I'm not here just to kind of, throw something out there. Yeah. So when that opportunity came about, I reached out to my mentor and I said, hey man, how close do you live to this address? And he said 15 minutes. And I said, will you help me make connections? He's like, I got you. And so that felt like, you know what, like, I think we can make a difference. I've got patients who travel from Atlanta to see me, and so it's not really far fetched. The biggest hurdle for this is going to be, I cannot clone myself. Yeah. And Chattanooga is who I am, right? This is, so it cannot, Chattanooga cannot suffer because of the desire to grow. And so I'm committed to that. I mean, I'd rather make less money and bring on other people to service those, so that's kind of, again, it's a new wave for me. It's a new excitement. But I say all that to say, like, Knoxville has already been in the plans. I mean, if I found a spot, I mean, I could, so it's just one of those things where it's like, who knows? I mean, I may have 3 additional locations by the end of the year. I don't know. We'll see.
If it's meant to be, it'll happen, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, at 3:30 in the morning, when I'm waking up, like with anxiety because of it, I mean, that's different. But for the most part, I feel like it's one of those things where like, I'm doing what I feel like God's called me to do. Yeah. And, I'm not going to stress about it. I mean, I think we've made it this far to where like just doing the right thing, right? Yeah. Doing the right thing by people, is, I'm not in it for the money. I love the idea of creating things. I love the idea of impacting other people. That's why I do it. And so
better than punching a clock, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. 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 I mean,
you get to do stuff like this.
Yeah. Like this is fun, like 3 years ago, I mean, would I've ever thought I'd have been on a podcast with Justin Bethune?
Talking about business?
No. I mean, who was I? You know what I mean? And so, so it's been fun to watch the growth. Another area I think that I'd love to hear your opinion on this too, just, in your businesses, but something I did not know because I'd never been a business owner was, one of the most gratifying, humbling, heavy responsibilities that I've felt is having employees.
Yeah.
When I feel like other people's livelihoods are directly related to what I do or don't do, that can be heavy, you know.
You talk about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning with anxiety. That's what causes
That'll
it.
get you right there.
That's what causes it every single time. And it's not me that I'm worried about. You know, it's not, I don't stay up at night worrying about where my next paycheck is going to come from, because at any given time, I've got so much, background in so many different things. I can go get a job tomorrow doing a dozen different things and be completely fine.
That's right.
It's my guys that work for me that I worry about. Yeah. It's like,
because they've entrusted you.
Exactly. And they have families. Yeah. You know, it's like, okay, I got to go make a sale because I got to provide work. You know, it's like, we've got to, I got to go sell another deck. I got to go sell another crawl space. Okay, I got to get another client in here in the studio. We got to sell another commercial. And like, for me, it's 3 different businesses. That's right. And so it's not easy.
It's not easy. No.
And so I've got a lot to worry about.
And you know the guy between your ears, right?
Yes.
I was talking to, I've got a 19-year-old daughter who's in college, and she's, golly, outside of the fact she's a female, she's about as close to me being cloned as there is. I mean,
that's terrifying.
It's crazy. I know. And so, you know, that's all the good things and the bad things of myself. And, she, you know, I was telling her today, she's like, I've always just kind of struggled with feeling like I'm not enough. And I was like, well, guess what? I'm 45 and I still feel that way, right? And what couples that oftentimes is what I would refer to as the imposter syndrome, right? Yeah. It's like everybody on the outside looks at Optimize You and looks at Josh Porter and, you know, all the success that we've had in the past 3 years. But they don't know me, right? They, you know, and I know me, and I think, why would you guys trust me? You know? Yeah. And so, so it's just one of those things. It's a daily grind in my own mind of thinking I can make a difference. I can impact people. And so, so there's always that, you know, kind of that balance of like, man, this is fun. I love having employees. And then it's just like, whew, you know, it's the burden of knowing that, you know, their paycheck depends on our success.
Yeah. So you're not the only one that feels that way.
No, I think it's a common thing. I think that's why I think it's important to talk about it. Is like, I don't know that I don't want to feel that way. Yeah. I mean, I think that's
what keeps you driven.
Yeah. I mean, it's what keeps me ethical.
Yeah.
Right. It's what keeps me from making really stupid decisions in my life, because I think I'm not, I mean, it's just like being married, right? You know, with 5 kids, like my decisions impact a lot of other people. Yes. And so the way I make those decisions and think through those decisions really matters. And so I don't know that I want that burden to be lifted as much as it was unexpected. Yeah. I did not realize, because I'd never done it.
Yeah. How many entrepreneurs say, if I would have known then what I know now, I never would have done this. Even though I'm happy where I'm at, I never would have started. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I feel that way all the time, but like, I'm in the same boat as you on that. It's like, people see the business, they see the home source and they see Build Something Media, and they're like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing this, you're doing that. And I'm sitting here like, why? Like, I haven't done anything.
That's right.
You know, like I feel like that even my parents and my fiance all the time, we're so proud of you. You're doing so much. And I'm sitting there like, I haven't done anything yet. Yeah. You know, like I've got a lot of stuff going on, but it's like, in my mind, I should be up here because I've got goals and aspirations.
Well, and you're comparing yourself to other people who are further along, which is good.
I'm comparing myself to my goals.
That's right.
And I'm not going to feel like I've succeeded until I hit those goals. Right. And I haven't hit those goals yet.
That's right. Guess what? You won't feel that after you hit those goals either.
I know, because I'll have another goal.
Goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things I do is I do what we call next 60 goals. So for every 60 days, I just set new goals. And so like I've got, 4 locations, 40 patients. Like I've got these goals in my head that I write them down every day, twice a day.
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Grant Cardone who said, write your goals down. Most people on average are maybe 100 times a year, right? Maybe. And that's pretty disciplined. And so if you're writing your goals down twice a day, 600 times, right? It's 6 times more than the average person who's writing their goals. Like there's no way you're going to lose, right? You're going to be successful.
When I first started the Home Source, I printed off this big poster, and it was like a thermometer. Yeah. And the sales goal, it was the first full year that I was in business with the Home Source. And then it was the window source of Chattanooga. And so I had the $1 million goal at the top, and I had it broken down by month.
Okay.
And then over on the side, it was based on what the season was. It wasn't just divided by 12. It was like, okay, like January, we're going to be slow, so I got to hit this. And I had everybody at that time, I had 5 people working for me in the office plus our crews.
Yeah.
And it was, I had way more people than I do now, and everybody was on board. So at the end of every month, I had that red Sharpie.
That's right.
And we were filling that in. Yeah. And we ended up, the goal for the year was $1 million. We did $1.2 million that year.
That's what I'm talking about.
And everybody got excited about it every time. And then COVID hit, and then everybody quit. But writing down your goals and putting them out there for everybody else to see.
Well, I love it. Yeah, you put them out there for everybody else to see, but you also brought everybody in. Right?
Exactly.
It was their goal.
Because the sales guy that I had, it was me and him doing all the sales. And it's like, hey man, this is on me and you. Yeah. You know, and production's production, but sales is the lifeblood of your business.
We do, we do incentives. There's not a single employee of mine who's not incentivized. And it's not necessarily based off of a dollar amount, because I don't want that to be what drives us. It's based off of patient volume, right? And so it goes back to, because there's, in my industry, right, you're paying a fee, monthly fee typically, for us to, manage you. And so you've got patients coming in, you've got patients going out. Right. And so there's always this ebb and flow of that. And it's just the nature of what it is. It used to crush me. Now it's kind of like, it's part of the business. Yep. It is what it is. But I think it's also a great way for us to drive ourselves to make sure that we've got the right people staying with us. Right. And so we incentivize all of them, and it brings them in to, when Justin Bethune walks in the office, guess what they do? Hey, Justin, how are you? Because they know you, and it's not about they are thinking about it from the money. It's just the culture that we built, where it's like, no. Like, we want people here, right? We're not trying to push people away. We want to bring people into this. So yeah, that's something. I've always, when I was a W-2, if you would give me an incentive package, bro, I was going to be your best employee. Yeah. So when I thought, well, shoot, I knew what motivated me. Why would I not do that for other people?
That's why I haven't punched a clock since I was in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every job I've ever had was commission only.
That's crazy.
And so, that goes right into, being a business owner and an entrepreneur. It's like, you give me an incentive, I'm going to outsell everybody.
That's right.
So I went to school to be a medical tech.
Okay.
And so I worked for a company that sold laboratory equipment and laboratory testing equipment and all that stuff. So they sent me to Dalton State to take med tech classes. And it was commission only. I was 23 when I took that job, started in the warehouse. They sent me to school. I trained for like 1.5 years. Yeah. And then went down to Savannah and got my territory. Sales rep of the year, first 3 years in a row. I took that territory from just under 300,000 a year to almost $1.5 million.
No way.
Right before we got bought out by McKesson.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, I killed it.
Yeah.
And it was like, you mean the more I sell, the more I make?
That's right. That's right. Well,
I'm going to sell.
And it's also, yes, there's that, and it's a reputation. Yeah. Like when I started this, some of my, guys kind of helping me, they're looking at other clinics in the region, and, there's this one that they're like, hey, there's a clinic in Louisville, Kentucky that, dude, they've crushed it, right? Don't even compare yourself. And I'm like, no, like, I'm going to beat them. And it wasn't because it was just in my mind of like, I want top.
There was a day where they were where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
If they can do it, I can do it.
Don't tell me I can't. Yeah. And maybe that was reverse psychology on their part, But it was just one of those things where I was going to be motivated to do that. And again, I know that can sound kind of weird, and it's like, it's all about money. It really has very little. It's all about impact, right? Yeah. To me, it's a way of saying, if I impact more people than somebody else, like that was the greatest thing I could have ever done.
Yeah.
And while you're doing it, you're making money. Right. And so anyway, so that's, it was, I like to be incentivized. I like to be told, there's, somebody a little further ahead of you. And I'm like,
gotta have somebody
hold
to
my
chase.
Beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to. So anyway, I love some goal setting.
There you go. That's the way it should be. Yeah. Always find people to look up to and learn from that are better than you, that that are already where you want to be.
Yeah.
Never be the smartest person in the room. All that stuff.
The business mentor that I started with last year, I mean, you talk about a humbling place, man. You get into one of the rooms with him, and, you know, it's easy. Again, I can be like, oh yeah, you know, we have this much money, you know, or revenue or whatever, and then you get in there and you're like that's cute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those guys are like,
I remember my first year in business.
yeah, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
you know, they're talking about one guy that is a buddy of mine. He negotiate. He's the PE guy for Top Golf, right?
Wow.
And the way he got the deal was like he just went in and just, you know, was like, I got you. And they're like, have you ever done a deal this big? And he's like, no, but don't worry about it. I got, you know, now he's doing them all. And I mean, he's on a whole different level, right? His mindset's at a whole different level than mine, just because of what he's been able to accomplish. But so those are good moments too, where it's like, yeah, I'm a small fish.
yeah. Being humbled like that will do a lot for you.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
You start to live in your own little bubble, and all the people around you are like, "Oh, you're doing such a good job. You're killing it. You're growing this business." And then you go meet these real successful guys, and you're like, I'm not shit.
Yeah. But I think it's good. I mean, that's who I want to rub elbows with, right?
Exactly.
Because that guy's going to teach me something that I don't know yet. You know, he already has, but that's what's going to make me a better leader, better husband, better entrepreneur, better provider, all those things, is because I'm putting myself in situations where it's like, this is not comfortable. I got to tell you how much I make or how much revenue we're producing and versus you. Like, it's kind of embarrassing, actually.
In this, if you get happy and comfortable for a while and you feel like, oh, okay, everything, you better open your eyes. Yeah. Something's about to hit you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No,
you got to stay uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Josh, we are, that was a great conversation. We were way over time. But when
that's a good sign.
Conversation's flowing, I like to keep it going. So
yeah,
and that's I'm going to use that. If the conversation's flowing, we're going to keep it going.
Oh, there you go, baby. A little tagline.
Made that up on the spot.
Yeah, come on.
All right. So thanks for listening to the Build Something Media podcast. Again, this is our guest today, Josh Porter with Optimize You. Do you want to tell everybody the best place to find you before we head out?
OptimizeYouCenters.com is the website. It's easy to find us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook at Optimize You Chat. You can call us 423-206-9753. Any of this work.
You heard him. Check them out.
Come on.
Thanks, Josh.
Yes,
Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, brother.